Hello, I'm Chris Merritt, and with me are Sarah Fregon and Dean Chivers from the Deloitte legal practice. And we're here to talk about legal management consulting, where you guys are the co-heads of this practice. Now tell me how this operates.
So I think probably the easiest way to summarise is to say that we're a provider of legal services, but with a very specific focus on using the strengths of the firm as a whole, from a strategy, technology, risk management, professional services perspective, and bringing that into the legal space. So really allowing that to colour the way we provide legal services.
So legal management consulting is one of the broad practice areas. Am I right? What are the others?
Well, we'll be following the global footprint that Deloitte has set, and that is across tax controversy, employment law, regulatory law, and legal management consulting, which is essentially, legal strategy.
Do you find that this approach is similar or different to the way traditional law firms operate, Dean?
Significant differences, I think. I think from the perspective that I think it's less around what is the list of services we offer and more around what are the challenges the clients are facing and what skills do we bring to trying to solve that in the sort of the most optimal way. So I think there are differences. I think the real differences, and it really does centre around using those skill sets in the firm to solve a problem more than list a set of services.
So it's not simply teams of lawyers, it's multidisciplinary teams.
Specifically not just sets of lawyers. I think that there's real benefit to solving legal problems sort of by applying skill sets like risk management, like data analytics, like strategy, like technology. So very much using the things that we're good at as a firm to solve some of the legal challenges clients have.
And how's the market received this? Is there a healthy space for this sort of legal practice?
Absolutely. I mean, Deloitte is well-established multidisciplinary practice anyway. Bringing legal into that just makes sense. And, we're in an increasingly regulatory environment. Post-banking Royal Commission, I think it's changed the landscape, obviously in financial services, but really across the board. And you need to be able to meet that need. It's a much more, I think, efficient and value-enhancing way of providing legal services, which otherwise I think have been accused in the past of operating in a bit of a vacuum, and that doesn't deliver the client a solution that is actually commercially implemented or able to be implemented, in a business-appropriate way. And I think that's what this does, is bringing that all together and being able to, focus our skills in the area that's best, but that is complementary to the skills that will really, for example, in risk advisory, enable you to actually map out your risk management framework and then implement it in the business.
So this sounds as though the client would not necessarily be simply the general counsel. It might be the chief financial officer. It might be all of them.
Chief compliance officer, chief risk officer, across the board. And they, in a business, and when you're GC in-house, as I've been, you work with all of those parts of the business. You don't work in isolation as a general counsel. You work with the rest of the business, and that's the way legal services should be provided.
And what's the growth like?
I think it's really good. I think at the end of the day, it's a brand new area for, relatively speaking, for most of the big four firms. Probably goes a long way to sort of completing the set of professional services that big four firms provide. And I think both globally and locally, from a Deloitte perspective, we've been really happy with the growth. We're over 80 countries in the footprint now, a couple of thousand lawyers across the globe. So, a broad and deep set of skills and innovative thinking to tap into.
One of the core things that I've been really interested in is the growth of legal technology in in-house legal departments. Is that still on the rise?
I think it is, and I think it will continue to be. I think as we see the challenges that organisations and general counsels face, and the Royal Commission would be a perfect example, it's less run-of-the-mill, it's less repetitive, it's more complex, and it requires something more than just an opinion. So I think the fact that that's the sort of challenges that clients are facing means that things like analytics and technology are things that are going to come into it. Sheer volumes of data that we deal with these days, sheer volumes of contracts we deal with, global reach of organisation, complexity of problems. All of those things can be solved by pure human interaction, but it's better to apply everything you have. There are great technologies and there's strong analytics. Sort of mix that up with the subject matter expert involvement, and you get a really good solution.
And I think that's the really important part, is having that sort of legal subject matter involvement in a legal technology solution. That's the perfect sort of perfect team. If you
What
like.
impact is this having on general counsel? Are they simply able to churn through 10 times more work? Is that the goal?
Well, I think some more than others. I mean, there's people who have been, there's organisations have been early adopters of technology. I think large organisations have had to, look down the technology sort of pathway probably more quickly than perhaps smaller legal teams. But I think it is changing the way things are done. It's certainly changing the way things are thought about from the outset. And I don't think there would be many general counsel who wouldn't be saying at the beginning of a discussion of facing either a large-scale regulatory review or a huge compliance task, is there a better way to do this than just a bunch of lawyers, sitting down and reviewing agreements, documents, or otherwise? It's madness not to be looking at for those solutions.
Yeah, and I imagine in big companies, big organisations, and unless you're on top of this, it'd be almost impossible to know exactly what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And in large organisations, it's not just legal dealing with legal issues, if I can put it that way. Risk is dealing with a lot of compliance and a lot of legal issues that are underlying or relevant to all of those tasks. So it's not even supply chain, are dealing with legal contracts and legal issues that arise. So it's something that it really is cross-functional across a business. It's relevant to all parts of the business.
Just to add to that, I think it also talks to the fact that I think general counsel's role is generally changing.
Yeah.
You're not very often going to come across a general counsel whose dream is to simply churn out reams of agreements on a daily basis. The challenges and the questions that general counsels face cut across the organisation. They become more and more strategic, and I think general counsels predominantly want to play in that role. And so as that changes and that role becomes more important and more strategic to the organisation, it matters to the GC how that function takes place. One of the things that we do is run labs for general counsels, and that is around what is the strategy for the legal function, what is the technology you're going to apply, what are the problems you want to solve, what is the impact you want to make, and all of that is really the start point to what follows. And it is a big change for how things have run traditionally.
Tell me about those labs. That sounds fascinating.
So they're really dedicated time, typically at least a day, and there's a lot of prep work before and a lot of work done afterwards. But it really is just a day where we can, as a firm, put some relevant skill set in a room tailor-made for strategic thinking, and make the day all about the general counsel, and either what is the plan going forward for that general counsel, or the strategy for the legal function as a whole. And we would bring in skill sets from a legal perspective, tech perspective, strategy perspective. It really is just about the general counsel and what we can do to help develop the plan going forward.
So this would be for newly appointed people?
The newly appointed general counsel, or ones that are finding themselves in a place where the legal function is transitioning to something different, and they're at the middle of that. So just helping them think through where they want to go and how they're going to get there.
I suppose this would be a good opportunity to cover that material that in the day-to-day rush should just be shunted aside, and
you don't get to it, and it really is an experience, and you are there at the end of that process with your sort of next 180-day plan mapped out. And I don't think in the day-to-day general counsel and probably a lot of other executives get that time to really stand back and hear from the business about what their needs are, and then also think about how they can transform their function or build their function if they're new in the role to meet those needs.
This is a very different approach to traditional law firms that simply offer legal services. It sounds like a multidisciplinary, deeper approach when it comes to interacting with the client.
Yeah, I think I like the term legal consulting, because at the end of the day, it is about consulting. Consulting is not telling somebody how to do it. It is not providing a solution and hoping somebody buys it. It is an interaction. You know, that's the heart of consulting. It is an interaction. What can we as a firm bring? What does the client need? What is the problem? And if we put all of that together, can we solve it in a way that makes sense and really adds value? That's really different to a client telling a lawyer what to do and the lawyer doing it and handing it back.
Yeah, or saying I need an agreement drafted or a template in isolation and then leaving it with you. It's about looking for what's a solution to make that repeatable, more efficient, traceable, reportable, all of those sorts of things.
Accountable.
Absolutely.
So General Counsel would have a real idea of what's happening.
Yeah, and also enabling to the rest of the business as opposed to just having to sit in the domain of the General Counsel.